Well, welcome everybody to our online program from the Sunshine Coast Health Centre up here in beautiful Powell River, BC. And this edition, we're going to talk about risks for relapse, or factors that are involved in relapse. And the reason for this is we just finished analyzing some statistics. We did a research study here on how well the fellows from the center are doing after treatment. So thankfully, I've got over 100 responses. Thank you to all who filled them out. And the statistics are actually kind of interesting. We've got this fancy software. You can punch in these numbers and then hit a button for anything you want to find out. So it makes life a little easier. We can play around with it. But anyway, one of the things that we were looking for was drug use after treatment. So the fellows who responded, it was either at the minimum 3 months after treatment up to 4 years. So we had a nice range of responses, and most of them came more than a year. So that was good too. So a good sample, as we call it. So we asked them, have you used anything after treatment, including what specific drug or drugs you used, okay? And the great news is, according to the responses, 54.8% hadn't done anything since they left treatment. So that's pretty good, because I said they range from 3 months to 4 years. And that range is actually very good compared to all the top research that we find in these things called peer-reviewed journals. So that's good stuff. But it also means, and one of the things that we're always concerned about is that at some point, that means around 45-46% use something. And we were not overly interested in whether it was one beer or they went on a 2-week run. That we sort of lumped them all together in a big pot. Although they did specify for how long they used whether it was just like one beer and that was it over 3 years, or whether they went on a 2-week run 3 months after they got out of here. Whatever. We just lumped them all into a big pot. Okay. And for those people, so we found out, somewhere around 47%, 46% did something after treatment, which again, according statistically, isn't too bad. So we're quite happy about that. Not that they relapsed, but that so many people didn't touch the drug. Anyway, of the people who did touch a substance after treatment, we asked them, well, why did you do that? What was the reasoning behind that? And so we got a big statistical list of reasons that people gave us on why they use drugs. And this is really quite fascinating, because if you read the modern scholarly literature, particularly nowadays, you find everybody seems to be hopped up on this craving. Oh, I relapsed because of craving. Craving is part of this research on addiction as a brain disease, and craving is actually considered one of the primary things, because the reason, according to the brain disease theory, the reason people do drugs is to get cravings, and these cravings are irresistible. And there's a very famous theory called incentive sensitization theory, which makes the argument that the cravings are so overwhelming that even if you don't want to use drugs, you still use them, because basically your brain gets hijacked and choice is not an option. And a lot of people say this is outside of consciousness, so you may not even know what's going on, it's just knee-jerk reaction kind of stuff. So cravings are huge. So this is what we read quite routinely now in a lot of the research literature and on websites and other places. But our results, our alumni gave us some different reasons. And the number one reason that they gave us was boredom. Interesting. In fact, not only was number one, it was really number one. There wasn't a tie at the top. So boredom was the first one. So that's kind of interesting, eh? And another number two on the list, and very high up, was loneliness. So that's kind of interesting too. Boredom and loneliness, right? And the third one was guilt. So that's kind of interesting too. And then the fourth one was a disruption in an intimate relationship. So those were the top four. And there's a bunch of others, but those were, statistically speaking, they stood out. And boredom being number one. So I thought we started talking a little bit about how we were making sense of that here. Okay, so take boredom. Why would it be that the alumni of this particular center would tell us that boredom was the number one reason that they felt that they were attracted to substances again, right? And if you think about it, it actually makes a great deal of sense. For us, addiction is defined according to Viktor Frankl. Right? So Viktor Frankl said that addiction is not understandable unless we recognize the existential vacuum underlying it. And what he meant by existential vacuum is that the life that you're living, you don't find it that meaningful. You don't feel like you're being filled up. There's no real excitement getting out of life. Yeah, I got to go to the job, but yeah, it's sort of ho-hum. And yeah, family's good, but you know, just sort of walk around the universe and say, this is it. This is kind of boring. So Frankl said, if that's your experience, then addiction is the technique you use to deal with that. And Frankl said the number one symptom of that kind of feeling was boredom. And we now know from research that one of the key issues that potential addicts and addicts face is that they are easily bored. And as you all know, when you use substances, boredom goes away. One of the great blessings of using substances. So boredom makes perfect sense about why it would be the number one reason that people cited as why they use substances again after treatment. Because it matches exactly what Viktor Frankl said. And although our particular therapy is based on the work of Paul Wong, not so much on Frankl, but it's the same idea, right? If I'm easily bored, if I don't really find much going on in life, all that, then I use substance to, you know, maybe even make me feel alive, right? Add some energy into my life, make me feel vital. Yeah. So, and again, it was quite interesting to see that boredom came up number one on the list. But we'll be back next time and we'll talk about some of the other things that we found from our research.